Hey guys, I'm Justin with Legato Financial Group. Our firm is passionate about helping educate consumers, which is why we're powering the Gaining Interest podcast. The podcast of quick conversations with industry experts on topics that you want to know about, from sports to dining to healthcare and automotive, and really everything in between. It's hosted by one of the greatest local personalities that I've met, that's John Ramsey.
I'll tell you why I love this podcast, because it's all about community. We used to call it water cooler talk, and that no longer exists. But if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us. We encourage you to tell your friends. As Justin mentioned, we're going to talk about everything under the sun. We will be gaining interest, and we appreciate you watching. Hello and welcome once again to Gaining Interest. It is a show all about things that are interesting, and certainly if something enhances your life, you probably find it interesting. I do, and that's why we're lucky to have Mrs. Kim Baker with us. And Kim is the president and CEO of the Kentucky Performing Arts. And by the way, once again, the show is powered by Legato Financial Group. Kim, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
If you've lived in this area for long, then you probably are familiar with the Kentucky Performing Arts. You do so much. But before we talk about the history of the Kentucky Performing Arts, let's talk a little bit about your history. So obviously, passion and affinity for the arts. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, I'd love to, but because part of my history is so closely tied to obviously this community, but the Kentucky Center for the Arts, because I grew up here and I remember when the center opened, when it was built, and I actually went to a program of the center called the Governor's School for the Arts. I was in the very first class. It was in 1983, and at the time I thought I wanted to play in an orchestra, be a professional musician, but I went to that program and it just sealed the deal that this was my passion, it was what I was meant to do, and really helped launch me into my next steps in college, and that's still happening today. But I guess it's important for me to share that with you, because the venue, the place, the organization that impacts so many people. I have a close personal connection to starting at age 16. Really.
Wow. So your passion is real and it's in your DNA.
Yes, okay. For sure.
I think it's interesting because when they first opened the Kentucky Center for the Arts, I was fresh out of college and I worked in the ticket office. Correct me if I'm wrong, was it Marlo Burt?
Yeah.
I think was the president of the Kentucky Center for the Arts at that time. And I remember like Charlton Heston coming in. I remember the opening, if I'm not mistaken, Roberta Flack, Charlton Heston was the MC. Am I right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And it had, we had all kinds of stars and artists from like Lily Tomlin, from Kentucky. But also it was really important to showcase our local and our statewide talent. So everything from, cloggers to the Black Diamond Choir at the University of Louisville. And it was really kind of a moment when that opened. And in fact, really, I don't think there's been too much like that here. Maybe I was thinking about the Ali Center, which you and I are both on the board of. So that was pretty fantastic. But really, to that scale, that grandeur was really, really important for our Commonwealth.
So you've touched upon a couple of things here. We've talked a little bit about the history and the opening of the Kentucky Center for the Arts. But with the Kentucky Performing Arts, the talent is so diverse, and you brought so many things to Kentucky that perhaps some indigenous, some right here in Kentucky, but then others that maybe expose us to something a little bit different from places around the globe. So when you think about the history of the Kentucky Performing Arts and some of the events and concerts that you brought here to either the center or to Paristown or to the Brown, what do you think of? Tell me a little bit about some of your favorite moments in history.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. That's hard to pick. But I think you teed it up really well, which is that the center was really created. Kentucky Performing Arts, now it's in its new name, was created for everyone. It was created for all people of the Commonwealth, but even beyond that. And so the programming reflects that. It's got the most incredibly diverse programming, from just fantastic professional local groups with, the great ballet, Louisville Ballet, and the Louisville Orchestra, Stage One Children's Theater, Kentucky Opera. But then, we have all of these national and international artists that we bring in, that Kentucky Center presents. So when I think about like some of the best moments that in the time that I've been there, I think about bringing in world-class artists like Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, or the Dance Theater of Harlem, or seeing incredible artists that grace the stages like when we brought in the Israeli Philharmonic. I mean, just these kind of unbelievable artists. But then we also have just incredible musicians like Jim James, or Jack Harlow at Paris Town. I mean, so it's the variety of artists and audiences is truly incredible, and there's something for everybody. And people say that, but it's true.
Kim,
it's really true.
Yeah, it really is. And you and I can tell your passion. When you smile, you light up when you talk about living here in Kentucky and what the arts, the rich community that we have in the arts. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we're one of the few cities, from what I understand, who has an opera, an orchestra, Kentucky Center for the Performing Arts. We can go on and on, the ballet. All of these things are here in Louisville and available. When you talk to your peers and you do a little elevator speech on what we have here in Louisville, what do you say, Kim?
Well, I tell them, of course, that we're a performing arts center that has a statewide mission. And when I share that with them, that we serve our entire Commonwealth, I mean, they're pretty blown away. And when I also tell them about all of the professional groups that we have in Louisville, I think they're surprised, yet they know the history, because sometimes, as Louisvillians, we don't really necessarily realize the reputation that our groups have outside of Louisville. So, I mean, this community is known for its cultural just amenities, and the center's part of that. Actors Theater is part of that. The history that we have goes even before the center was opened. It was one of the reasons why the center was opened, for that, and to kind of elevate even more the arts and culture and the opportunities. But I think they are surprised, but they also have they're fascinated. I think they're very interested, because Kentucky is so diverse. So very diverse, whether it's urban, rural, it's just got a lot of incredible heritage.
A lot of what you're talking about, Kim, points to tourism and luring people to Louisville and to the state of Kentucky, and you certainly have done a great job at that, and I want to talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, as a parent and someone who lives here, let's talk a little bit about the importance of exposing children to the arts and the fact that you have educational programs. That's part of your mission, isn't it?
Absolutely, because the arts help. They help teach you how not only to understand history, but to really feel it. They make an impact in a way that reading a book can't really do. And so the history of the center has always it's been kind of married with education. We have had really very strong programs that reach throughout the Commonwealth. Stage One Children's Theater is a wonderful resident that brings in, 70,000, could be 70,000 young people a year. And really in that way, and also through programs that we present ourselves, we're really able to expose young people to the arts, and programs like the Governor's School for the Arts that we have with 500 young people from across the Commonwealth also help inspire them to think about, well, what else could I do with my life that I haven't even thought about before? It teaches them that creativity, and that creativity is so important for us. It's important for our employers. It's important for our community. I mean, these are our future leaders.
You had you mentioned the Governor's, it's a Governor's School for the Arts, is that correct?
Yes, right.
You mentioned that you attended that.
Yes,
my son attended that as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, yeah. Tell folks who aren't aware about the experience and how special it is and really unique. Maybe I'm just unaware, but I haven't heard about anything like this around the country.
Well, there isn't anything like this around the country, because it's a 3-week intensive program. There's 2 back-to-back programs. 500 young people are served in 9 disciplines, everything from design and architecture to performing. So, musical theater, dance, instrumental music, visual arts, creative writing. I mean, just all kinds of art forms. And the thing that makes it so special is that it's absolutely free. And so it levels the playing field for anyone that has the talent to go and be around peers from all over the Commonwealth. So when people go through this program and they leave this program, they're not only empowered artists and they feel empowered to do great things, but they also really have a different appreciation for the Commonwealth and the state
Yes.
and each other. So, and they build lifelong friendships that they bring with them for the rest of their lives. It's a very, very special program.
I'm glad you said that because my son, he made lifelong friendships and he continues to keep in touch with those folks. And, of course, obviously they have this bonding passion for the arts,
Yes.
but it's such a unique experience. And he's still to this day, and he's 33 years old now, and he talks about it. So it's neat, I think, to expose kids to the arts. And when they find out, hey, I think when they think education, when a kid thinks education, they think, ooh, I don't want a part of that. But education can be something that you feel in your heart as well.
That's right.
Talk about the importance of that. It must be rewarding for you when a child comes to a play for the first time, or maybe a concert for the first time, and they walk out smiling and they found something they didn't know existed inside of them. Talk about that.
Well, it is. It's so rewarding, and it happens. I mean, it happens all the time. In fact, I just got an email from someone who had taken their children to see the Dance Theater of Harlem. And at the end of the program, the dancers came out into the lobby and celebrated. We had a dance party. There were thousands of people in the lobby, generations that were dancing together. And she sent me a picture of her children and how inspired they were, because not only did they see that these dancers that were the top of their game, they saw people that looked like them. And she said it made all the difference for them. So that's just one little example, but it happens all the time. Young people come through, they see a story, something they can relate to, they have an experience, it creates a vision, it creates passion for what the future might hold, and hopefulness.
Yeah. So we've talked about the educational opportunities for children and just the pure enjoyment of the arts thanks to the Kentucky Performing Arts. Let's talk a little bit about tourism.
Sure.
Because Cleo Battle and some of those at Louisville Tourism, they often talk about, I've met with them many times, about the value of the arts in this town and the importance of keeping it vibrant to tourism. So tell folks about the connection a little bit. You're more closely related to that.
Well, I mean,
So,
just think about yourself. When you go to a community, you want to see kind of what is it a reflection of the people that live here. You want to go to see what the locals do and what they create and make, and you get cues about how they value their community or through their architecture, all of those things. So for me, that's why the arts are so important to our community. But and with tourism, that you've got the basic. Okay, we're going to draw people here because we've got a show that isn't playing in their market. They're gonna come here to see it. We have that all the time. I mean, we've all 50 states represented, and so many countries per year that come to the center for various reasons and stay in the hotels, and that really supports the economy. But then there's just the ways that the arts reflect what is important to us as Louisvillians, as Kentuckians. The bourbon industry is really an art form, or bluegrass music, all of those types of things. How do we showcase that in what we present and our opportunities for individuals that are visiting us? And I tell you, the other thing is just, when you have these opportunities to gather people together, what that does for all of our surrounding businesses. I mean, it really does bring activity to downtown, to neighborhoods where the arts are. So Paristown's a great example of that too. It's really wonderful to see communities come alive because of that. Because of people coming together.
And there's something to be said for going to a theater, whether it's a concert or a play, the adrenaline rush, and then coming out of there experiencing something that you saw live. Not on television, you saw people performing, and every performance is just different enough to make it special.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have had that happen so many times where I'll see, comedy's a perfect example, where you can see comedy on TV and it's funny, but you're around, 1,400 people or 2,400 people, and you all are the joy. It just makes everything, it just like elevates that experience. But that's with any live performance, really. I mean, I recently had that experience with comedy, but, even with film, we also often show film in the theater, and you have all of those people together watching film. film. It's that shared experience that happens. Or when Hamilton came, and the second that it started, and people were just screaming. I mean, you can see it on TV in your living room, but you can't replace that experience of being with so many people, having that same kind of experience together. But you're from all walks of life. It's truly unique.
Yeah, Kentucky Performing Arts speaks to community. You have so many different tentacles, and you've talked about these partnerships. We mentioned tourism, and you said the tie with bluegrass and bourbon.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about those partnerships and maybe some of the vetting that goes on when you decide what kind of an event is going to go there. Those are partnerships too. Some of these are ongoing, some of them may be brand new, but you really do connect people and venues and events, right?
Definitely. So I can think of something that's upcoming, although I don't know if it will be when this airs, but we have a great partnership happening at Paristown right now. And it's on a children's book called The Snowy Day. And Snowy Day and Other Stories. And the partnership is between the Children's Theater, the Louisville Orchestra with original music, and then, we've got the space that is kind of celebrating this brand new work. But it's in Paristown, and connected to Paristown, of course, is the whole district of the ice rink, Louisville Stoneware, the cafe, the village market, all the things that are happening because of the holidays. So that's become a real kind of tourism draw.
Sure.
It's become a bit of a neighborhood in and of itself. And it's a way that we are working in tandem with our neighbors and our partners to do something bigger than ourselves.
You are definitely an asset when it comes to the growth of Paristown. That's been proven. Talk a little bit about the Brown Theater and your relationship there. It's a different feel, isn't it?
Oh, it's my favorite because all of our venues are so different, and that's also something that I think is very special that people notice about us. When you talked about the peers and what they see is the variety that we have. But yeah, the Brown is a historic theater, so it was built in the 20s, and it's designed. It looks very similar to the Music Box in New York City. So when you walk in, it is historic. It's been redone several times, but the history of it, it's always been authentic to that history and the color palette and everything else. So you just get this feeling of walking into another time with the big, beautiful chandeliers. The Brown is so intimate, and it's so awesome for anything that has to do with kind of close performance. So music, live music, theatrical stage, opera. The opera plays there, performs there, and you just feel like you're so connected to the stage and the audience.
And now we have to, because we opened the conversation, we have to talk about the Kentucky Center for the Arts as
course.
well. So we mentioned a little bit about the opening and the rich history, but it's not just Whitney Hall. You got the Baumhard, and so tell us a little bit about your relationship with the center and how that works.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't know. They know the center for the Broadway series and the Whitney Hall, and that's what they think about, or the orchestra and the Whitney Hall. But the center has actually 3 theaters. So it's got a wonderful theater called the Baumhard. You just mentioned it. It's a little over 600, and wonderful lectures from the Authors Forum. Just all different kinds of things happen there as well. Lots of acoustical music and comedy and things like that. But then also there's an experimental theater called the Mex Theater. And
I'm not even aware.
Oh my gosh, you've got to come.
Okay,
Well, we're going. I'm taking you
I'm
because
in.
it is. Talk about intimate. It's got a little over 100 seats. So when you're in that space, I could reach out and touch you as an artist. You're right there. So there you go. but it's all kinds of newer theater companies, community theater companies.
Experimental?
Some experimental.
Improv?
All of it. All of that. Music, acoustical music sometimes. So it's one of those things that people aren't aware of, but when they find out about it, they want to keep coming back because they kind of stumble into it. And it's a very, very special experience, though. So there's 3 theaters. So yeah, we are going to give you the full tour.
Yeah, I think to me, when I hear you talking here, I think there may be someone who's watching right now or listening to Gaining Interest, and they're saying, okay, I'm a new parent. I want to expose my child to the arts. Or perhaps I'm a retired person and I want to start enjoying the arts more. Kentucky Performing Arts is this big umbrella.
Yeah.
So how do they begin to get involved? Do they go to a website? Do they have a
Yes.
conversation with someone and say, hey, this is what I'm interested in? How does that work?
Well, I mean, we have everything on the website. So it's a great place to start if you just want to see all of the different shows that are coming. So if you go to www.kentuckyperformingarts.com.org. .org. We're a nonprofit. So if you go to that, you can see that listing and that lineup. And I was actually just looking at it the other day. I think there's 60 shows that are on there right now. So you can really get a sense, and you can also see how to get more involved. I mean, there's information on our volunteer program if you want to become a volunteer.
Yeah. There's more to it. Yeah,
there's so much more to it. If you want to become a member and get closer to what's happening and have an opportunity for some special membership. Events and those kinds of things, that's on there. So, I mean, really, I would just say to go start there. That's a great place.
it's obviously important that you help not only enrich people's lives in the community, but also support artists, whether they play the banjo in a bluegrass band or they're performing artist, an actor or an actress. You support that. How do you vet what events that you decide to, okay, this is coming to Whitney or this one's going to go to Paristown? Talk a little bit about the vetting process and how you guys decide. How do you make, I guess, meet the requirements kind of thing?
That's a great question because we are a community-based organization. So we have a programming department and we have buyers, and they keep very close to what's coming out in the world and what we really want to bring here to our community. So there's that, but then there's also our relationship with community artists. And having those relationships is really important because they need to have access to professional stages, professional support. And in those cases, it's a lot of that is just based on our knowledge, our work, our collaboration, and then figuring out how we can work together to make sure their vision, their creative expression is brought to the stage. So we work in a variety of ways with a number of different artists on all kinds of levels. It's not an easy question to answer,
Sure.
but anyway, but I would say that regardless, there's a level of quality that you're going to experience when you come to a Kentucky Performing Arts venue.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. And as president and CEO of the Kentucky Performing Arts, you've seen it all. So I'm curious, I want to bring it a little bit to a personal level. So is there maybe a genre or a play or something that developed a passion for you after childhood that you saw and you said, okay, I'm going to follow that and it's going to become a part of my life? Is there something maybe you didn't think you'd care for and now you're really passionate about?
Yes, I'll tell you what it is. I mean, for me, it was instrumental music. That's what it started, because that was what I was so connected to. And I'll still cry when I come to the theater and I hear something, whether it's opera, whether it's orchestra. It's very moving to me. It's beautiful. But I think what surprised me the most was dance, because I don't think I ever realized that there was this incredible world beyond ballet. And there's so much incredible dance, whether it's modern dance, it's so visual and beautiful. We have something called Momix's Alice, based on Alice in Wonderland coming up, which, that's the best way. But it's kind of like this blend of artistry and music and stunningly beautiful visuals. So I love that. It's very theatrical. So I think that's how I would answer that. There's things that are fun, like, that I just never thought I would enjoy. Wrestling.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
It's really fun. But
Okay, that's a little different.
And how did I know about that? The center used to manage the Louisville Gardens, and so I learned about that. So anyway, that's when I talk about breadth. There's a large breadth between contemporary dance and wrestling.
I tell you what, if you could combine maybe a little orchestra music, let's put Teddy up in front of a wrestling.
He would do
ring.
that. He would totally do that.
I love thinking out of the box like that. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Teddy does, and for those who aren't aware, our conductor is very, I guess, open-minded and wants to be very cutting edge and expose anyone, because I think some people think, okay, orchestra music, boring or whatever. Not true, first of all. Secondly, this is a guy who's willing to think outside the box and include everyone, bring them all in, right?
100%.
So tell me about that. Tell me about your thoughts on it. I think he's just a real asset to this community.
Oh, for sure. And I'm a huge fan. So this is me as a fan. Of course, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Louisville Orchestra, but me as just kind of a collaborator and as a fan. It's so much fun to watch because of his passion. And you're right, how he believes, as we do, that arts are for everyone, and really trying to cross, cross those different audiences and different art forms. I mean, that's the future.
Big picture wise, and this may be something that's for another show because it's such a broad question, but in this time of divisiveness, but there is something to be said about. I've never been to a concert or to a play or any kind of arts experience where I've seen people disagree. It's something, I guess, because it speaks to your heart. Talk about the importance of art, whether it be the orchestra or play or whatever, in bringing people together.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing about art is it pushes you to think a little deeper, think a little harder about what you're seeing, and really take some time to say, well, what does that mean to me? So sometimes the best part of seeing the show is the time after the show, when you're with those that you maybe saw the show with, and you can talk about what you've seen. Oftentimes people have very different experiences, but regardless, they're brought together in conversation. They've had that shared experience. They discover something maybe that they didn't know about themselves, or how they felt about something, or learned something from what they saw on the stage. So all of those things are critical in our society and in our community. I think it's the way through.
A lot of times when we talk about economic indicators, and it's usually something to do with Wall Street or certain businesses and buying and selling homes or whatever the case may be. But I think a healthy arts community is an economic indicator, and certainly there's a happiness meter involved there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially coming out of the COVID time, when we were, definitely apart. We were so apart, didn't have the opportunity to come together. I do think people are looking for times to come together, celebrate, joy, have hopefulness. That doesn't mean light entertainment, but it means hopeful entertainment. And I think that that is something that's significant that we provide. But that's the wonderful thing about a performing arts center is we're also a home for artists. And artists, they're a reflection on the world, and sometimes that's not always hopeful. Sometimes that may be presenting other sides of things. But that's important too, that we have a place to reflect and understand and grow.
You are a real asset to this community, Kim.
Well, thank you. So are you.
Oh, well, thank you. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Because you are so passionate about it. It's got me excited. So again, Kentucky Performing Arts, head to their website. I'm assuming
Please,
KentuckyPerformingArts.org.
.org.
.org, that's right. Yeah, go there and look for upcoming events, support them, and I promise it will enhance your life. Our podcast, Gaining Interest, is powered by Legato Financial Group.